Grinding Mechanism of Torment is the sophomore full-length album from Caustic Wound, a Seattle, Washington area death grind band, and one that I would say kind of splits a pretty fair deal between death metal and grindcore of old. There's classic old school death metal in their work, and you can feel that because these folks, they played in bands like Cerebral Rot and Mortiferum and Fetid, and that's kind of the new old school bounding sound that we find on this record in very short bursts. We also have the drummer from Magruder Grind in this band. It's a New York grindcore band, if you don't know them, and he's a fantastic drummer. He really is the anchor of this record for my own taste, as he was for the first record. And if you're a fan of like Terrorizer, Dead Infection, bands I mentioned in here like Gravesend, this has a lot of that action too, but it has a more serious approach on death metal. And I think the shorthand that a lot of people have used is something like incantation for that sound. It doesn't fully fit. Think of like Mortiferum or Cerebral Rot instead, simpler rhythms and still similarly intense, but these are 1 or 2 minute songs overall. I'll stop talking about it and let you listen to a little bit of a song here, and then I'll describe a little bit more about what's so much better about this record than the first and what it kind of carries on from the original starting point of the band. So the older school feeling grindcore is for me, the better it is, because it usually has riffs and it has linkages to 80s hardcore. 80s hardcore punk is kind of the fuel that fed death metal in the first place, as well as grindcore. And when a band fully understands that and they approach it that way, grindcore is all the better. And so this really does sound like a late 80s up to maybe 92 death grind record as they intended, not exactly like Atrocity, something along the lines of like a Terrorizer influenced band. I think I mentioned Dead Infection's first record is kind of the general feeling of it, but then these are modern musicians who play in a more evolved and fastidious style. So if you're a fan of like Enemy of the Music Business era Napalm Death, or you're a fan of From Enslavement to Obliteration era Napalm Death, there's something you're going to like on here. When they throw in the death metal, things turn a little more Symphonies of Sickness, not in terms of vocals, but in the movement and style. That's the way I would describe it. It's not going to appear entirely on pure old school terms, and it's been recorded to kind of sound that way, but it doesn't necessarily try to be a retro grind record so much as just a good one, and I think it is. It's a great record. There's a couple of really good pockets of songs on this out of the like 16 or so, and those will be obvious. They'll have the big riffs and all that, and I think some of the longer songs, especially the closer, just didn't really hit for me. So not a perfect record, but an entertaining one with tons of riffs, and that's what kept me coming back to it. A high recommendation for me. I don't know how long it's going to stick around on the shelf, but it's a solid record that I think shows you what they can do, and it hasn't quite outmoded or written off their first record either. So their discography is pretty solid so far, and I hope they continue with it. Check it out for yourself. It's a high recommendation for me again, and go ahead and read my review if you'd like more of my thoughts.